The town of Eldenbrook lay nestled in a valley, its cobblestone streets winding like ancient veins through the heart of a forgotten world. Mist clung to the ground in the early morning, thick and heavy, and the houses appeared like silent sentinels watching over the village. Inside one of those homes, a young girl named Elara stood by the window, her wide eyes filled with curiosity and uncertainty. The town was still, but her heart raced with anticipation. Today was the day her life would change. Elara had always felt different from the other children in the village. While they played and laughed, she often found herself lost in thoughts too big for her age, her mind wandering beyond the walls of Eldenbrook. But today, something was different. A whisper of a promise lingered in the air, something only she seemed to hear. "It is time, Elara," the voice said. "You must find the light." Her breath quickened. It was time. Elara stepped out into the cold morning air, the mist wrapping around her like a blanket. She pulled her cloak tighter around her shoulders and began walking down the cobbled streets, her footsteps the only sound breaking the silence. The village was still asleep, and the only sign of life came from the faint smoke rising from chimneys in the distance. As she walked, Elara couldn't shake the feeling that the world around her was holding its breath. The voice in her head was growing stronger, more insistent. "Follow the light," it urged. But where? She had no answers, only the sense that something was waiting for her, something important, something she needed to find. Her heart quickened as she passed the familiar homes, the ones that had always been there, offering comfort and safety. Today, however, they felt like prison walls, confining her to a place she no longer belonged. As Elara approached the edge of the village, the mist seemed to thin, and the path ahead revealed itself. The trees on the outskirts of Eldenbrook towered over her, their twisted branches reaching into the sky like skeletal arms. The village had faded behind her, and the wilderness stretched out before her, uncharted and untamed. Her heart raced in her chest, a mixture of fear and excitement flooding her veins. The voice now spoke to her not through her mind, but through the wind itself. "This is the way," it whispered, the sound rustling through the trees like an old secret being shared. Elara paused, taking one last look at the village, unsure if she was ready to leave everything she had ever known. But the pull of the unknown was too strong. With one deep breath, she stepped forward into the forest, knowing her journey had truly begun. The deeper Elara walked into the forest, the more the world around her seemed to come alive. Strange sounds echoed in the distance, and the wind moved through the trees, carrying with it the faint scent of something unfamiliar. As she ventured further, the path became less clear, and the trees grew denser, their shadows stretching out like fingers blocking the light. She had no idea where she was going, but she felt the weight of something following her, an invisible presence watching her every step. Yet, in her heart, she knew she could not turn back. The forest was alive, pulsing with energy, and somewhere within its depths lay the answers she sought. The voice in her head was no longer a whisper, it was a steady rhythm, a pulse, guiding her onward. "Keep moving," it said. "The light is waiting for you." As Elara pressed on, the air grew colder, and the fog thickened once again, wrapping around her like an unseen force. The sound of the wind, once gentle, now carried an undercurrent of urgency. Her breath formed visible clouds in the air as she quickened her pace. She had no clear destination, yet the path seemed to be chosen for her. The trees opened briefly, revealing a clearing in the distance. In the center stood a stone pedestal, overgrown with vines. On top of it lay a small, glowing crystal. Elara's heart skipped a beat as she approached it, the air around her buzzing with energy. She had found it. This was the light. Her hand reached out instinctively, but as her fingers brushed against the stone, a low rumble echoed from the ground beneath her feet. Something was awakening. Elara's fingers lingered over the glowing crystal, its warmth sinking into her skin, sending a shiver down her spine. She could feel the hum of power coursing through her, urging her to take it. She had come this far, yet part of her hesitated. The voice had grown silent for a moment, as if waiting for her to make a decision. The air around her was thick with anticipation, and even the trees seemed to hold their breath. The clearing was bathed in the soft glow from the crystal, but as her hand hovered above it, the ground beneath her feet trembled. A low rumble filled the air, making her heart race. She took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves, and pressed her hand fully against the stone pedestal. The moment she made contact, the crystal flared to life, blinding her for a moment. The voice returned, now louder than ever. "It is yours, Alara." The power of the unseen light. The moment Alara's fingers made contact with the crystal, the forest around her seemed to come alive. The trees swayed, as if caught in an invisible breeze, their leaves rustling in a rhythm that matched the pulse of the crystal. The energy in the air surged, and Alara's heart pounded in her chest. The light from the crystal enveloped her, filling her senses, and for a moment she felt as if she was floating. Her vision blurred, and strange images flashed before her eyes, glimpses of distant lands, faces she didn't recognize, and symbols that seemed ancient and powerful. Then, as quickly as it had come, the sensation faded, and Alara was left standing in the clearing, her body trembling from the force of what she had just experienced. The crystal was now dim, its glow subsiding, but in her chest the sensation remained, an undeniable connection to something greater, something she could not yet understand. Alara stepped back, her hand still hovering in the air, as though unsure of what had just transpired. Her mind raced, trying to piece together the images and sensations that had flooded her senses. She looked down at the now dim crystal, still perched on the pedestal, its glow barely visible. "What was that?" she whispered to herself, her voice trembling. For a moment, it seemed as if the forest had fallen silent, as if holding its breath. Then the voice spoke again, but this time it was different. Softer, more distant. "The journey has only just begun, Alara," it said. "The light has chosen you, but the path ahead is fraught with challenges. You must learn to control it, to harness the power within you." Alara's heart raced, a mix of fear and excitement rising within her. She had taken the first step, but she had no idea where it would lead her. The forest stretched out before her, mysterious and endless. Alara's mind was reeling, but she couldn't stay in the clearing forever. The voice had told her to move forward, and she knew she had no choice. As she turned to leave, her gaze lingered on the crystal for a moment longer, and the soft light flickered once, almost as if bidding her farewell. She turned away, taking her first steps deeper into the forest. The path ahead was unclear, but the sense of purpose that now filled her chest gave her the strength to continue. The trees around her seemed to open up, the dense woods giving way to a more open area, though the mist still hung in the air, making everything feel distant. With every step, she felt the power of the crystal within her, as if it was guiding her forward. But there was something else too, a feeling of being watched, of something just out of sight. Alara quickened her pace, not wanting to look back. The unknown was calling her, and she had no choice but to answer. Alara had walked for what felt like hours, the forest around her unchanged. She couldn't tell where she was, nor could she remember how far she had come. The fog seemed to wrap around her like a shroud, and though she could see no sign of life, she felt the presence of something ancient, watching her from the shadows. Her legs ached from walking, but she couldn't stop. Not now. The crystal's light had faded, but its presence within her had only grown stronger. Her hand rested on her chest, over her heart, as if trying to keep it steady. She had never felt so alive, so connected to the world around her. Yet, she also felt an overwhelming sense of fear, as if something dark and powerful was lurking just beyond her sight. The voice spoke once more, but this time, it was not comforting. "You must be careful, Alara. The light you carry is not the only power in this forest." The forest around Alara seemed to deepen, the shadows growing longer, and the trees more twisted, as though the very air had changed. Every rustling leaf, every broken twig underfoot felt amplified, as if the forest itself was alive, aware of her presence. Her pulse quickened, the power within her chest growing stronger with each step. The voice had become more insistent, almost urgent. "It is close, Alara. "The heart of the forest waits for you," it whispered in her mind. She didn't know what it meant, but she couldn't ignore the pull she felt. Her heart beat louder in her chest, urging her onward. But the path was no longer clear. The trees seemed to close in around her, and a strange, unsettling stillness fell over the forest. The once familiar rustle of leaves was gone, replaced by an oppressive silence. Elara's breath caught in her throat. Something was coming. Something powerful. She could feel it in her bones. The air grew colder as Elara ventured further into the heart of the forest, and the mist clung to her skin like a chilling breath. Her steps slowed as the atmosphere grew heavier. She could no longer ignore the feeling that something was watching her, lurking in the shadows just beyond the edge of her vision. The trees seemed to shift, their branches moving in unnatural ways, creaking as though they were alive. A low growl echoed through the forest, its source unseen. Elara froze, her heart pounding. The voice inside her mind stirred once again, more desperate this time. "Stay close to the light, Elara," it warned. "The darkness here is ancient, and it will seek to swallow you whole." Elara's hand instinctively went to the crystal hidden beneath her cloak. She could feel its warmth, its power, but even that was not enough to calm her growing fear. Something was coming. She had to move faster. A sudden flash of light in the distance caught Elara's eye. It was faint at first, but then it grew brighter, pulsing in the distance like a heartbeat. She didn't know what it was, but something deep within her told her that it was the answer she had been searching for. Her feet moved of their own accord, carrying her toward the light, and with each step, the darkness around her seemed to retreat. The growl from earlier faded into the distance, but Elara didn't dare look back. Her heart raced, and her breath came in short bursts. The forest, however, was not ready to let her go. As she neared the source of the light, a figure stepped from the shadows, blocking her path. It was tall, cloaked in shadow, and its eyes glowed faintly with an unnatural light. The figure spoke in a voice that was neither male nor female, deep and unsettling. "You should not be here, child. This path is not meant for you." Elara hesitated, the figure's words sinking into her like ice. The light behind the figure called to her, but she was trapped, the weight of its presence suffocating her. The figure stepped forward, its eyes glimmering with cold light. "Turn back, little one. You do not understand what you seek. This forest holds the secrets of a past long buried. They are not meant for your kind." The voice was low, almost a growl, and it sent a shiver through Elara. She took a step back, but the figure raised a hand, and the air grew colder still. "You carry the light, but it is not enough. The darkness will consume you," it warned, its voice like a low wind rustling through dead leaves. Elara's grip tightened around the crystal. She could feel the power growing within her, the warmth spreading from her chest. The light was not just something she carried, it was a part of her now. She would not back down. With a sudden burst of energy, Elara stepped forward, her feet carrying her toward the light. The figure tried to block her path, but it was as if the air itself pushed it aside. The light grew brighter, pulsing with warmth and power, and the darkness around her receded like water being pulled away by an unseen tide. The growl faded, and the figure seemed to melt into the shadows, its form dissipating like smoke. Elara took a deep breath, her heart still racing, but now filled with a renewed sense of purpose. The light had accepted her, had chosen her. She was no longer just a girl lost in the woods. She was something more. The voice inside her mind spoke once more, but this time it was filled with reassurance. "You are ready, Elara. The path ahead will not be easy, but the light will guide you." The last of the darkness faded as Elara stepped into the clearing, the light now filling the space around her. She was not alone anymore. The light around Elara dimmed slightly, but its warmth lingered, wrapping around her like a comforting cloak. She stood in the center of the clearing, her breath steadying as she absorbed the quiet of the forest. The trees around her had shifted, their twisted forms now standing like silent witnesses, their dark silhouettes stark against the soft glow of the light. The voice in her mind remained constant, gentle but insistent. "You have crossed the threshold," it said. "The path ahead will not always be clear. There are forces in this world that will try to stop you, but you are not alone." Elara turned toward the horizon, her heart filled with a new determination. The light was not just something she had found, it was now part of her, and she could feel it pulsing within her veins, like the steady beat of her heart. It was time to leave the forest, but she knew the journey ahead would be fraught with danger and uncertainty. As Elara began to walk away from the clearing, the forest seemed to open up around her, the path ahead stretching long and uncertain. The trees slowly gave way to a dense, overgrown thicket, their branches reaching out like skeletal hands. The light within her pulsed, guiding her, though the air had grown colder, the weight of silence pressing in around her. She could feel it. Something ancient, something watching. The voice in her mind spoke again, but now it was softer, almost comforting. "Trust yourself, Elara," it said. "You will know when the time comes to act." The trees began to thin, and the mist started to dissipate as she walked deeper into the wilderness. Elara's heart was racing, but she no longer felt alone. She had a purpose now, a purpose that would see her through whatever awaited ahead. As Elara moved deeper into the wilderness, the forest began to change. The air grew thicker, heavier, and the once gentle wind now carried an undercurrent of tension. She could feel it in the way the earth beneath her feet seemed to shift, as if something was stirring beneath the surface. The light within her pulsed erratically, reacting to the change in the air. The voice spoke again, urgent this time. "The darkness is closing in," it warned. Elara paused, looking around, but she could see nothing. The trees seemed to grow taller, their shadows stretching farther, blocking the light. A distant guttural growl reached her ears, making her pulse race. She instinctively pressed her hand to her chest, feeling the warmth of the crystal that had once been so small, now growing heavy inside her. She was not yet ready, but there was no turning back. The path ahead was dark, and something was waiting for her to take the next step. A sudden crack echoed through the air, followed by the rustle of leaves and a deep rumbling growl. Elara's heart skipped a beat as something large and unseen moved through the shadows. Panic surged within her, but she gritted her teeth, forcing herself to stay calm. The voice returned louder now, filled with authority. "You must be ready, Elara. The light within you will protect you, but you must act." The trees ahead parted suddenly, revealing a dark figure emerging from the shadows. It was tall, draped in black, with eyes that glowed a fierce red. The figure moved toward her, its steps slow and deliberate. Elara's pulse quickened. She knew this was the moment the voice had warned her about. The darkness had found her. Without thinking, Elara raised her hand, and the light within her flared, brightening with energy as she faced the creature before her. The creature stopped, its eyes locked onto Elara's as the light from her chest pulsed brighter, filling the space around them. The air crackled with energy, and Elara could feel the power surging through her. The figure seemed to hesitate, its form flickering in the dim light. The growl that had filled the air was now a low hum, vibrating through the earth beneath her feet. "You carry the light," the figure spoke, its voice guttural and filled with malice. "But you cannot stop what is coming." The words struck Elara like a physical blow, but she stood her ground, her hand raised in front of her, channeling the energy of the crystal within her. "I don't need to stop it," she said, her voice steady. "I only need to find the truth." With that, she pushed forward, the light erupting from her chest, sending the creature stumbling back, its form dissolving into the shadows as the light overwhelmed it. The forest grew still again, and Elara exhaled deeply. She was no longer the girl she had been. She was becoming something more. The forest fell silent again, but Elara's heart continued to race in her chest, the energy of the light within her still pulsing with power. She stood alone in the now empty clearing, the creature gone, vanishing like a shadow in the light's wake. But the sense of dread did not fade. It had only deepened. The voice in her mind spoke once more, softer now, filled with a sense of urgency. "This is only the beginning, Elara. What you faced was but a fraction of the darkness that seeks to engulf this world. You must go further. Elara's breath hitched, but she forced herself to steady it. The path ahead stretched out before her, long and uncertain. The forest had shifted, and the mist once again clung to the trees, now thicker and darker. The light within her was the only thing keeping the shadows at bay, but Elara knew that it wouldn't be enough to shield her forever. She had to find the heart of this darkness and stop it, before it was too late. As Elara walked deeper into the forest, she could feel the presence of something ancient and powerful watching her. The air seemed to grow colder, the trees closing in as the path ahead became more treacherous. Her feet stumbled on the uneven ground, but she kept moving, driven by a force she couldn't explain. The voice was quiet now, but it lingered in her mind, reminding her of her purpose. "Find the heart," it urged. But Elara had no idea where to look. She felt as though the forest itself was changing around her, the path twisting in unexpected ways, as if trying to lead her astray. The trees whispered as the wind picked up, the sounds now unmistakable. She wasn't alone anymore. Something was coming, and it was much worse than the figure she had just encountered. Suddenly a shape loomed ahead of her in the mist. Elara stopped. Her breath caught in her throat as the figure began to materialize out of the darkness. It was tall and cloaked in tattered black, the air around it swirling with shadows. Its face was hidden beneath a hood, but its eyes glowed a faint red, staring directly at Elara. The forest fell deathly silent once again. Elara's hand instinctively went to the crystal hidden under her cloak. The figure raised a hand, and the shadows around it seemed to surge forward, as though alive. "You should not have come, Elara," the figure spoke, its voice low and harsh. "The light you carry is a curse, and you will learn that soon enough." Elara's heart raced, but she stood tall, the light inside her flaring in response to the growing threat. "I will not turn back," she said, her voice steady, but her body ready for what was to come. The figure's eyes glowed brighter, its form beginning to dissolve into a mass of swirling shadows. Elara raised her hand, her heart pounding in her chest as the light surged from her, casting away the creeping darkness. The figure seemed to recoil from the light, but it did not fade. Instead, it reformed into a towering shape, more monstrous than before, its mouth opening in a silent snarl. "You cannot control it," the figure hissed, its voice distorted by the growing shadows. "The light you carry belongs to me, and it will destroy you." Elara's breath caught in her throat as she felt the intensity of the creature's words. But there was no fear in her. She had come too far to stop now. "I won't let you have it," she said firmly, her voice filled with newfound strength. The light within her surged once more, and this time, it wasn't just her own will that fueled it. It was the forest, the world itself, fighting back. With a final desperate roar, the figure charged toward Elara, the darkness swirling like a storm. But Elara did not falter. She focused all her energy on the light inside her, channeling it into a brilliant pulse that shot forward, engulfing the creature. The force of it was overwhelming, and the darkness began to dissolve like smoke in the wind. The figure screamed, but its voice was lost in the light. Finally, the creature shattered into a cloud of shadows, vanishing completely. Elara stood alone in the clearing once again, her breath heavy, but her heart unshaken. The light inside her had not only defeated the figure, it had grown stronger. She could feel it now, a force that was no longer just a gift, but a part of who she was. The forest around her had returned to silence, but Elara knew this was not the end. She had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, but there was still more to be done. The light within her was the key to the answers she sought. Elara stood in the stillness of the forest, the light within her now a steady pulse, calming yet powerful. The shadows had receded, but the silence was deafening. The forest, which had once seemed so alive with whispers and movement, was now utterly still. Her breath came slow and measured, her chest rising and falling with the rhythm of the light within her. The crystal, still hidden beneath her cloak, thrummed gently against her skin. She could feel its power echoing through her, reaching out to the world around her. The voice, once so clear and urgent, now seemed distant, as if the distance between them had grown too great to bridge. "The heart of the forest awaits," it murmured, its presence still there, but now more like a whisper in the background of her mind. Elara turned toward the path ahead, her steps light but purposeful. She had come too far to stop now. The forest had revealed its dangers, but she was ready. The heart of the forest was close. The path ahead seemed to stretch on forever, the trees growing taller, their branches intertwining overhead to form a canopy that blocked the light. The further Elara walked, the darker it became. She could no longer see the sky above, only the dim outline of the path beneath her feet. The air grew thick, heavy with moisture, and the sound of her footsteps was muffled, swallowed by the dense forest around her. The voice returned, no longer a whisper, but now a faint hum in her mind. "The darkness is not only around you, Elara. It is inside you." The word sent a shiver through her, but she didn't stop. She had no choice. She had to keep moving. The path was unclear now, twisted and overgrown. But there was something at the end of it, something calling to her. She could feel it in her bones. "The heart of the forest," she whispered to herself, her voice steady, though doubt gnawed at her. Elara's pace slowed as she reached the edge of a clearing. The trees parted just enough to reveal a large stone altar, its surface worn and ancient, covered in vines and moss. At the center of the altar lay a glowing crystal, similar to the one she carried, but much larger, its light pulsing with an energy that resonated deep within her chest. As she approached, a low rumbling sound echoed through the clearing, and the shadows around the altar seemed to grow, twisting and stretching like tendrils reaching toward her. Elara hesitated for a moment, but the light within her surged, pushing her forward. She stepped closer to the altar, her heart pounding in her chest. The voice in her mind was now a steady, rhythmic beat, filling her with both fear and resolve. "This is it," it said. "The heart of the forest. This is where your journey truly begins." As Elara stepped closer to the altar, the ground beneath her feet trembled slightly. The shadows continued to writhe, and a dark figure materialized at the edge of the clearing. It was tall and cloaked in darkness, its face hidden beneath a hood, but Elara could feel its gaze on her, cold and penetrating. The voice in her mind grew louder, more frantic. "Do not approach it, Elara. You do not know what it is capable of." But Elara didn't stop. The light within her flared, and she felt its power surge. "You've come this far," she whispered to herself. "This is the heart. I have to face it." The figure stepped forward, its movements slow and deliberate, as though it had all the time in the world. "You are too late," the figure said, its voice a low rasp. "The forest's heart belongs to the darkness now." Elara stood tall, her hand outstretched toward the crystal. "We'll see about that," she replied, her voice unwavering. The figure lunged, its shadowy form moving faster than Elara could react. But as it reached for her, the light from her chest erupted, surrounding her in a brilliant wave. The dark figure recoiled, as though the light burned it, and Elara felt a surge of energy course through her. The voice in her mind spoke again, this time filled with a sense of triumph. "You are ready now, Elara. The power within you is stronger than the darkness." The light from the crystal on the altar pulsed in time with her own, and for a brief moment, the forest seemed to hold its breath. With one final push, Elara extended her hand toward the crystal, and the light exploded outward, engulfing the figure in a burst of energy. The darkness screamed, but the light was too much. The figure dissolved into shadows, and Elara stood alone, her chest heaving as the light within her dimmed. She had done it. For now, the darkness was gone. But she knew this was only the beginning. Elara stood in the clearing, the echoes of the battle with the darkness fading into the stillness of the forest. The light from the crystal and the energy within her had finally dissipated, leaving behind a quiet peace. But that peace was fragile. The forest was still, the air heavy with the scent of earth and pine, but Elara knew that what she had faced was not the end. Her heart still thumped loudly in her chest, the power of the light now a part of her, coursing through her veins. The voice in her mind, once distant, had now grown clear, almost as if it had become her own thoughts. "You have done well, Elara," it said. "But the true test is yet to come. You must find the source of the darkness, the one who has awakened it." Elara's breath quickened, the weight of the task before her sinking in. She had come so far, but now the final journey awaited. "I will," she whispered, her voice filled with resolve. "I will finish this." The forest began to change as Elara walked, the trees parting to reveal a narrow winding path. The mist from earlier had returned, thick and creeping, wrapping around the trunks of the trees like tendrils of darkness. Every step she took felt heavy, as though the ground beneath her was sinking, pulling her deeper into the forest's depths. The voice in her mind remained, its tone now urgent. "You are close, Elara. The source is within reach. But beware. The final test will push you further than you have ever been. You will face yourself." Elara's stomach twisted at the thought, but she couldn't stop now. She had no choice. The path ahead grew darker still, the trees looming overhead like blackened giants. There was no turning back. She had to find the source, the origin of the darkness, before it consumed everything she had fought to protect. The air grew colder, and Elara's breath fogged in front of her. The sound of the forest had changed too. What had once been a quiet hum was now a low, constant whisper, like a chorus of voices just out of reach. She couldn't understand the words, but they felt like a warning. She pressed on, her steps steady despite the unease creeping over her. The path twisted, and soon Elara found herself standing before a massive ancient tree. Its trunk was twisted and gnarled, its bark dark and scarred, and its branches stretched out like skeletal arms. At the base of the tree was a dark, jagged crack in the ground, from which a low, pulsing light emanated. The air around the crack felt alive, charged with an energy she couldn't explain. The voice spoke again, but this time it was more like a whisper in her mind, guiding her closer. "This is it, the heart of the darkness. It is here that you will face your greatest challenge." Elara took a deep breath, her heart racing as she stepped closer to the crack in the earth. The light pulsed in time with her heartbeat, growing brighter with every step she took. The whispers grew louder, now indistinguishable from the voice in her mind. They swirled around her, filling her ears with words she couldn't quite grasp, but they felt familiar, like echoes of her own thoughts. "This is the moment," the voice said. "The final test. You must face yourself. The darkness is not a creature, nor an entity. It is within you. It is the fear, the doubt, the power you have yet to understand." Elara stopped just before the crack, her chest tight with the weight of the words. She had fought so long, so hard, but she realized now that her true battle was not against the darkness in the forest. It was the darkness inside herself. With a trembling hand, she reached out toward the crack. As Elara's fingers brushed against the edge of the crack, the light flared brightly, and the ground beneath her feet trembled violently. The whispers in her mind grew louder, now distorted and frantic. "You cannot escape it," they cried. "It is within you. You cannot defeat it." The voice, though still familiar, now seemed like a distant echo of the past, a part of herself that had once held her back. But Elara pushed through the fear, her hand resting firmly on the crack. The light surged, and the forest around her seemed to bend and shift, the trees groaning as if they, too, were feeling the pull of the power within the crack. In that moment, Elara understood. The darkness wasn't something to fight. It was something to accept, something to transform. The light and the darkness were two halves of the same whole. She breathed deeply, letting the power surge through her. She was ready.